In today's news, 24-year-old Shermar Richardson charged in the robbery that led to the death of Mrs. Catherine Pickering.
And really, as Jovan, as residents continue to question exactly what are the events that led up to this event, of course, as well as VI shares steps in safely reopening the economy, despite residents not thinking that our economy is actually closed.
Absolutely. We see, of course, Claude Skelton-Cline, the host of Honestly Speaking, calling on the government to reform laws regarding legal firearms, of course, being afforded to business owners as the territory sees a surge in robberies.
All this and so much more when To It for News returns.
The win.
What in the hell?
I'm freaking out.
Gender is about these people.
It's always a pleasure coming to you live and direct from the
What's poppin'? What's really good?
Davis has won it for the Lakers.
Welcome everybody. It's Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. I'm Ron Grant. We're coming to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands.
And my name is Javon Wilson with your daily dose of local, regional, as well as international content. Today is Cake Day for our very own Honorable Kai Rima, the Minister of Transportation, Works and Utilities, of course. So we want to wish him a very happy birthday. We know that he spent today doing the people's work, of course, most of the day in the House of Assembly. But of course, we want to wish him an abundance of blessings as he forges forward in service, not just to the territory, but beyond. So happy birthday. New discovery in the case of Catherine Pickering, a 24-year-old Shermar Richardson, was today charged in the robbery that led to her death. This is a big move by the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, but residents are now questioning why wasn't he also charged for the murder since it led to the death of Mrs. Pickering. We have all the details later on.
Most definitely. Now, 162 persons have been employed, under the 1,000 jobs in initiative that was led by the VIP administration in crime linked to vehicles. More traffic enforcement is needed, says Transportation Minister, the Honorable Kai Reimer, and some 1,700 persons have lost their jobs since March, mostly work permit holders. We have all the details as we continue to look at the local stories.
Viewers, as we dive right into today's newscast, 24-year-old Shermar Richardson of Jean Hill was charged for his involvement in the robbery turned murder of Catherine Pickering. Now, according to reports, Richardson was employed at the gas station in Boggles Bay, owned and operated by the family of the deceased. The charge was confirmed by newly appointed police commissioner, Mr. Mark Collins, who expressed his desire to see all the individual or individuals responsible quickly arrested and brought to justice. Listen in.
Greetings to you all. My name is Mark Collins and I'm the newly sworn Commissioner of Police for these beautiful Virgin Islands. I'm delighted to have been selected to lead the men and women of the RVIPF and to ensure that the BVI remains one of the safest territories in the Caribbean. I would have liked to have greeted you on a slightly lighter subject, but I believe what I'm about to say now is more important than ever. On Sunday afternoon, the 18th of April, I was given the details, like everybody else, that a businesswoman who was simply returning to her home after a day's work was confronted in her driveway by an armed male. Her mother, who was inside the home at the time, attempted to come to her aid, and she was shot and subsequently died from her injuries sustained. This is absolutely shocking and should invoke decisive actions, not just from the police, but from the community. I want to see the individual or individuals responsible for Miss Catherine Pickering's death quickly arrested and brought to justice. Yesterday, I personally visited with the daughter of Catherine Pickering, and I was able to give her a further update on the investigations. As a result of the dedicated work of the RVIPF, we were able to bring 4 persons into custody, and one of those individuals has today been charged. My detectives continue to move meticulously through the inquiry process and to ensure that no stone is going to be left unturned. I have full confidence in the officers currently in charge, and there is no doubt in my mind that they are more than competent, knowledgeable and trustworthy. However, I know there are concerns with reporting information to the police. This is not only locally, this is an international issue. However, I can assure you that whatever information you pass on This will be dealt with confidentially. I can also assure you that if any of my officers breach the standard of confidentiality, they will be dealt with according to the Code of Police Conduct. We have still not identified the persons responsible for the death of Derville Williams Earl, Bob Hodge, and the deaths of last year of Overton McMaster Jr. and Matthew Daly. I am ready to receive any information that can further assist us with these investigations. We now have officers from the UK and from other Caribbean jurisdictions now assisting local officers in these murder investigations, and I give you my assurance that I will get my detectives to follow up on any information which provides legitimate leads to link an identified perpetrator with the needed evidence to arrest. This is necessary for us to charge and convict, and is an ideal time for anyone to assist us with some of our unsolved cases. The major crime team number is 368 5682, 368 5682, and the number for the head of the major crime team, Inspector Vernon LaRocque, is 368 9809, 368 9809. Let us together bring justice in these cases and re-establish a calm and secure Ireland, and make the BVI the safest territory to work, live and raise a family. Thank you all very much for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you.
That was Police Commissioner Mr. Mark Collins. Now, according to the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, they said, and I quote, "Initial reports indicated that the local businesswoman arrived home at Parakeeta Bay just around 7:30 p.m. with her day's proceeds. Now, upon exiting her vehicle, she heard the voice of a male demanding money. The mother of the businesswoman, who was at home at the time, heard noises outside the house and attempted to exit the house and was shot." Now, viewers, honestly speaking, talk show host Mr. Claude Skelton-Cline is now calling on the government of the day to reform laws that will enable business owners to hold their own firearms in light of the surge in robberies. He said, and I quote, "It's a situation where only the criminals got guns, but law-abiding citizens who need to protect their families, some of whom have businesses, are being denied the capacity, the ability to carry a licensed firearm. We cannot remain as sitting ducks in a country where the innocent continues to suffer and in so many instances lose their lives. It's unacceptable. If the current laws that we have on our books are not suited for the 21st century and the challenges that we face, it is time for reform," the local businessman and clergyman said. Now, since Pastor Klein made these comments, a lot of persons have publicly opposed it. But Ron, I do believe it's definitely something to think about. Indeed. You know, personally, in speaking to a few businesses just recently, and many of which were robbed, we had just about 15 businesses that were robbed, believe it or not, viewers, over the last month. Some of them back to back, 2 to 3 times within 1 week. And business owners are saying that they are downright frustrated with these thieves. They are not confident right now in the police moving fast enough. And some of them, as a matter of fact, one of them even said he feels the need to take this into his own hands. One person even said to me, you know, imagine we're dealing with COVID-19 and the effects of that, and now we have to, absolutely, we cannot even feel safe at our own business places. And I think this is the cry of the business community, especially when you look around and you see mothers being gunned down. Plus, you know, I don't necessarily know what the rules are here in the BVI, but in most countries, the law states that if you start a crime and then somebody dies, you are essentially liable for murder, whether or not it was your intention or not. And we can look at the George Floyd case, viewers. He wasn't charged with first-degree murder. This is, of course, the police officer, Derek Chauvin. He was not charged with first-degree murder because they couldn't prove that it was his intent to kill. But regardless of that, he did a wrongful act, which, of course, led to the death of this man. And if we had to look at that, we would understand that, you know, somebody has to pay the price in this case, and we cannot continue to allow this to be a precedence in the BVI.
Jovan, you're absolutely right. And I think when we compare this situation to a lot of cases, not only regionally but internationally, like you spoke of, we really have to take a lot of scenarios and situations into perspective. Now, a lot of persons, let me just say that when it comes to the judicial system, point in case George Floyd and we're comparing it. However, they somehow feel as though a guilty verdict means that justice has been served. We have to understand that in the final analysis, the justice system is an organization that should be outside of political leaders, outside of
Yes.
influence. They are making decisions that they think is fit, and that could sometimes come in the case of a not guilty verdict. Now, in the point of this case, in the instance of Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
we see where they're saying he was not at the citation. This is alleged that he was not at the location, but he did orchestrate the robbery by calling and notifying as an employee of
That gas
of that
station.
gas station that led it to not only the robbery but the death of Mrs. Catherine Pickering. So we have to look at that. Of course, it appears that the shooter is still unknown. 3 of the 4 who were held have been released, and police say that they will be continuing to pursue as they continue to really figure out what took place. But of course, as you said, a lot of persons are wondering and asking why not murder. And when we compare it to different jurisdictions, these are some of the facts of the case that we're seeing.
The
come to
one
fruition
thing
here.
we can confirm in this case is that he was part of the team that
Yes.
orchestrated this ruthless murder, and so he knows what's going on, and he was charged. Yes, and we're grateful that someone was charged in this case. I know that must bring some level of relief to the family, but we need
not
to get to the
justice.
roots of the
This
matter.
is not justice, and this is definitely not how we continue to progress. We encourage persons throughout the community who may have an understanding of what took place to really come forward again.
Yes.
And this is what we see that is hampering a lot of the cases. In the voice note, Police Commissioner Collins mentioned the number of unsolved murders that are not yet, the family has no closure. And I think we really, as a community, have to look at our part that we're playing.
Yes.
And again, do our best to make sure that, the families have closure.
All right.
Still ahead, the British Virgin Islands has shared its perspective on how it intends to safely reopen the economy amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Believe it or not, now Special Envoy to the Premier of the British Virgin Islands, Mr. Benito Wheatley, in a virtual panel discussion with political leaders, industry executives, civil society representatives, and other stakeholders in the Pacific, represented on the theme Island Rising for Economic Recovery. Now, during a conference on the island's sustainability organized by the University of Guam on April 9th, Mr. Wheatley recommended that the relevant authorities of islands in the Pacific ensure the necessary health and entry protocols are in place to identify and, of course, isolate COVID-19 infections and prevent the spread of the virus among local communities. Now, he stressed the importance of vaccinations, of course, to reduce the risk to the public as economies are opened to welcome visitors, and emphasized really the importance of keeping the public health situation under control to avoid lockdowns. Now, according to Benito Wheatley, Special Envoy, he said, and I quote, "Lockdowns damage the engines of economic growth and are very costly," which we know, commenting on his engagement with political and Special Envoy, political and industry and civil society leaders, that is, in the Pacific. Special Envoy Wheatley continued by saying small island developing states in the Caribbean and Pacific should continue to share with each other their respective experiences in managing the COVID-19 global pandemic and, of course, the steps they are taking towards economic recovery. The British Virgin Islands has been highly successful in containing COVID-19 while safely running the economy, which is opening up further as risk have decreased with the vaccination of the population. Mr. Wheatley was joined by the other high-level panelists, including President of the Republic of Palau, His Excellency Suragado S. Whips Jr., and United Airlines Managing Director of Operations for Asia Pacific, Mr. Samuel Shakura, that is, and other panelists, of course, including the Vice Mayor of the Municipal of Del Carmen in the Philippines, Honorable Alfredo Coro, founder and board chairman of the Blue Planet Foundation in Hawaii, Mr. Hank Rogers, and Senior Vice President and Chief Communications and Corporate Social Responsibility Officer of the Bank of Guam, Ms. Jackie Moreta. Now, the high-level panel really took place at the University of Guam's Island Sustainability Conference on April 9th. The British Virgin Islands has been recognized by the UNDP and the UNECLAC for its successful management of the COVID-19 pandemic and safely reopening its borders and economy through the adoption of robust health and entry protocols. Jovan, these are very interesting statements by our leaders. Of course, this is led by Special Envoy Mr. Benito Wheatley. As I think here in the BVI, we have again safely mitigated and controlled COVID-19. But when we look at the robust economy, which, believe it or not, is being preached, I do think that residents and business owners would disagree. We have safely protected persons, but we have not as a territory. When we look at the facts, when we look at the level of distraught among businesses, I don't think we can safely say that we have been able to sustain a robust economy. I think that is definitely, I think the experts would say that that is inaccurate.
Absolutely. And I think what we're being touted for is how we've dealt with the health aspect, but not necessarily the economy. And I mean, wider BVI, not just the business community, would agree to this. The Premier remains very hopeful, just recently making very strong statements about his confidence in the rebooting of the economy. But definitely, we all know that we have a very, very long way to go.
And I think it's important, Jovan, when we look at the reopening of our borders and all that, we cannot paint a picture that once the borders have been fully reopened,
automatic.
that it's going to automatically somehow. I think that that's the heavenly picture that is being presented, and it's unfortunate. It's not realistic, and I think in the final analysis, we do have to prepare ourselves as best as possible for the unfortunate disappointment that what we might be expecting with the opening of the borders may not come as fast as we think.
And we have to be very realistic about that. Now, viewers, is still ahead. A St. Vincent man actually was arrested for hiking into the volcano that's currently erupting over there. We have all the details. Plus, the volcano continues to erupt. And of course, this is such a troubling situation for our Vincentians, brothers and sisters. We continue to bring you the updates. So stick with us. There's more after this break. Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, as we pan across to neighboring St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Desron Lavaman Rodriguez, the 34-year-old hiker who rose to infamy for his repeated jaunts up to the Lucifer Mountain, has been arrested. Now, details are still sketchy, but police sources have confirmed that he was taken into custody at the Bayabo police station just around 4 p.m. on Tuesday. Now, despite repeated appeals issued by Nemo, Rodriguez continued to venture up the mountain, his most recent trek on April 18th. Now, as has become the norm, he went live on his social media platform to prove to the world that he was there. Now, he came under heavy criticism from Professor Richard Robertson, who described his actions as irresponsible and dotish. Professor Robertson said, and I quote, "People talk about bravery, and to me, somebody is brave when you are aware of the risk that you put yourself or because of your job, the need to contribute to society in some fundamental way. You still take action to save your family or something like that. So you are aware of the risks. You know you could be killed or you know you could be hurt, but you still do it. That's a brave person. A brave person is not somebody who goes up to the mountain, who understands the risk, putting themselves and their parties at risk and the people who might have to rescue them. That person is not brave. To me, that person is simply dotish," the professor said. Now, viewers, police are yet to reveal what those charges will be for Rodriguez, but as of right now, he remains in police custody. Meanwhile, we do see the Lucifer volcano currently in a phase where the most deaths during the volcanic eruptions occur. Head of the monitoring team, as Professor Richard Robertson, has warned on Tuesday as he cautioned persons to view the volcanic activity from safe distances. Robertson said that persons should specifically stay away from Rabaka, an area with a dry river that now offers a very commanding view of the volcano, which has been erupting since April 9th. Professor Robertson said, and I quote once again, "The first thing I would say is that the volcano has not stopped erupting yet, and everywhere in the red zone is extremely dangerous, even during these lulls, because we don't know how long the lulls are going to be. The pattern seems to be like that now, but the volcano has shown that it can change its pattern within minutes without any other indication," he said of the volcano, which last exploded last Sunday after a 41-hour lull. He continued, once volcanoes are erupting as they are now, and once they have shown that they have a potential to be explosive and could be dangerously and violently explosive, as this one has shown, it really makes sense for you to stay away from them, even if it looks now like there are periods when there is very little happening. Ron, still a very troubling, tragic situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Clearly, we've seen videos, persons are saying, yes, we are frightened, but they're still amazed by the wonders of nature, as they put it. So still venturing very closely to this volcano, which is very dangerous. But of course, we continue to plead with them to
dangerous
stay safe.
and dotish, as
Dotish.
the professor has said. I could not
Dotish.
agree more accurate.
gosh.
As we continue to follow, of course, the UN has launched a $29.2 million global funding appeal on Monday to aid citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines affected by the major eruptions, of course, that we just spoke about, the sweeping La Soufriere volcano, really pledging to remain, as they say, the steadfast partner. Now, the funding will provide immediate life-saving humanitarian assistance, including clean water, and support a sustainable recovery for everyone impacted. The UN and partners will also really assess the economic, social, and environmental toll on the countries touched by the fallout, including ash removal and improving environmental health provisions. Another UN priority is to continue preventing the spread of COVID-19, of course, while the residents of St. Vincent and the Grenadines continue to battle with the present situation. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, located in the southern Caribbean, consist of more than 30 islands and keys, of course, 9 of which are inhabited. Now, at 4,000 feet or 1,220 meters tall, the La Soufriere dominates the largest island of St. Vincent. Silent since 1979, which we know the volcano began sweeping smoke and rumbling in December before a full-blown eruption on April 9th. Now, with over 12,700 evacuees now to date registered in public shelters and in private homes, close to 20,000 persons that is, are expected to be displaced. Entire villages have been covered in ash and buildings damaged, schools and businesses closed, crops and livestock destroyed, and residents left with limited access to clean drinking water. Now, any further eruptions are expected, actually, and are actually said to be taking place. One comment from the officials in St. Vincent and the Grenadines said, and I quote, "The level of destruction that has befallen this beautiful country and the widespread disruption caused by this event will forever be etched in my mind. The devastating impact of this event on thousands of people is undeniable," said UN resident coordinator for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean at that particular situation. Now, a call for international solidarity has been made to provide a lifeline to the most vulnerable people in St. Vincent, as well as Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Grenada, and of course St. Lucia, which have been hit with several ashfall. In a comment, they said the UN will be a steadfast partner, working with the government and the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to ensure strong and resilient recovery, assured resident coordinator. Now, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonzalez, joined Mr. Tribeco to launch the funding appeal alongside multiple representatives from the UN, agencies, and international organizations, including the World Food Program and the UN Children's Fund. Joining the launch online were representatives from UN Women, the UN Population Fund, and of course the Pan American Health Organization, the International Organization for Migration, and the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization Development, as well as the UN Development Program, food, agriculture, all of that good stuff. The financial resources will also be used for crucial recovery efforts to immediately assist citizens to regain their footing. This global fund will mobilize the international solidarity to enhance our efforts in saving and really assisting persons in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This crisis comes as St. Vincent and the Grenadines is recovering from its largest COVID-19 surge and the pandemic and the region's worst dengue outbreak, which has gone unnoticed, believe it or not, Jovan, in recent history, and a few deadly hurricane seasons. Meanwhile, UN Emergency Relief Coordinator Mark Lowcock announced the allocation of its $1 million in the fund in the central agency. Jovan, of course, we continue to cover the story in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a very dire situation. However, one of the things that I think has been overlooked as it pertains to the situation is a territory like St. Vincent and the Grenadines that has strongly been for years been reliant on the industry of agriculture. This is indeed a direct hit to that industry. When you think of the significance of this volcano, they have been known for banana export, and this is a direct hit. It is not a situation that is going to be able to recover in a few months. This is something that has literally affected their bread and butter, while other territories like the BVI may not be able to relate to that particular industry. This is a direct hit to the agricultural industry, and I think it's going to be a while we welcome the support of the UN and all the territories. Of course, we know Rotary here in the BVI, our territory, our premier, has been working to assist as with leaders of other territories, but I definitely think it's important for us to really pinpoint the immense attack on the agriculture industry in St. Vincent.
And, you know, people are already saying, because we know we have been speaking to the damages and, you know, what's ongoing, but I don't think we have really focused on the rehabilitation and recovery efforts.
Of agriculture
and yes, and that is going to be a Herculean task for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And, you know, I do know that the Prime Minister Gonzalez, he was already in conversations with many groups like these, regional and international groups, to solicit help, but also banks. And he was doing this from very early on. I believe from like the second day the situation happened. The reality is this: the concrete, the ash that is falling from the skies, the rocks, they're actually forming into cement form and weighing down roofs, breaking in buildings, and the trees, like you said, just today they were speaking to the flora and the fauna as well, completely ravished. So food security is severely compromised in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and this is why, even though we have seen so many efforts on the ground to assist, we have to continue to pull together assistance, because they're going to need our assistance definitely for a very long time, Ron.
And definitely they will have to be looking at other sources of income, because that industry, again, may be affected for a number of years. We don't know how long. So we're going to continue to wish them the very best as they continue to traverse through these very difficult times, a pandemic and a natural disaster.
And it's difficult. We already know how it is on the ground. So viewers, we want to encourage you again. There is the Delta gas station effort where you can reach out and, of course, have your products sent through them for free to your family and friends in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I believe by the end of this week, that boat will sail off. I think it's in collaboration with Lazarus.
Lazarus Trucking?
Yes, and somebody else. I can't remember what's the second person's name, but collaborative effort. Just drop your products off. But for now, viewers, that is all the time we have. Of course, you can head on over to our website. That is 284media.com, where we have quite a number of articles that just simply could not make the newscast today. However, they're for your reading pleasures. Sorry, we're also on Facebook at 284media and Instagram and Twitter at 284BVI. It's been a terrific Thursday. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I'm Ron Grant. It's always a pleasure. You do have a rest of the good day. Happy Thursday to each and every one of you, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.